evening and welcome to Build Your Best Life. My name is Jocelyn Charles. I am your host for tonight, and you are watching the Blueprint for Success podcast. I'm so grateful to be with you, and I'm even so much more excited to have our special guest with us today, Mr. RJ Miller. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you back on the platform. I know it's the first time for you and I. How are you this evening?
I'm doing amazing, doing great this evening. How about you? I'm glad to be here.
I'm doing well. I want to thank you and our viewers for waiting for us. That was a little bit of technical difficulties in the background, but technology, you can't live without it. That's for sure, not in this day of age. And sometimes it may throw a little curveball your way, but we're here, we're rocking and rolling, and we have an exciting podcast for our viewers tonight. RJ is going to be speaking to us about the 5 things that he's learned as a teenager and young adult. But again, I want to welcome our viewers on. Make sure that you give this live a thumbs up, some hearts, and share with some family and friends who could use this information. So please communicate with us. We love to see the interaction in the chat as well. So this platform, if you didn't know, and if this is your first time viewing the Blueprint for Success or tuning in to Build Your Best Life, this platform is built on elevating and preparing young men to become productive members of society, honoring God honoring men as well, and just helping lift them up and give them the guidance to be on track and sometimes to get back on track, right? Sometimes they need that help. But we're all about supporting young men here and making sure that they are on the road to success as they go into adulthood, as well as supporting the parents and guardians and single mothers as well, so they can be that supportive piece for these young men. So without further ado, RJ, I have some questions for you. So we're going to get right on into it. At 24 years old, what is one lesson about becoming a young man that you wish you had understood when you were about 16 or 17?
That's a great question to start us off with. So, one lesson I feel like I learned that I wish that I had learned sooner whenever I was younger is that the small steps in between matter. Was it in that every little small action leads to a further later on reaction. And so I guess like one term that I would use to kind of summarize it up is that your life is just a reflection of the choices that you've made so far. Was it and is constantly going to continue to reflect those choices. And so whether it be something as simple as, whether or not you made your bed this morning or whether or not you've continued to make your bed for the last couple of weeks, was it these small decisions and things like that matter, and accommodating and accumulating to the lifestyle that you want to build out to. And so was it like keeping in mind all those little decisions and knowing where they can lead you on to. I really wish, whenever I was younger, 16, 17, that whenever my dad was telling me, oh, make sure your room was clean, make sure this is clean, make sure that, you put stuff up whenever, I'm trying to remember the exact verbiage he used for it, was if you put stuff up the first time, it means that if you put stuff away the first time means you won't have to go and put stuff up later. So it's like, you won't have to go and actually keep up to go and clean up your room effectively. It'll just always be somewhat clean. So, just these small little principles and things like that, they all matter and accumulate and they leak and build into other facets of your life. How you maintain your finances, how you maintain your car, how you maintain your health. All these different things matter a ton. And so being able to know and understand that building up these habits builds up a strong was a regimen, strong routine for your mind in the same sense that you're building your muscles in your body. It's an amazing lesson to learn. So that's a great one to send to the young 16, 17-year-olds out there, for sure.
Absolutely. Listen to your parents. We be on repeat, and we understand what it means to have that routine, to have that structure. But, at 16 and 17, you're like, why is he nagging me? Why is she nagging me about this room? Because we think that all other things on our mind are so much more bigger, or more important. But we know because we've been there, those things do create structure. It creates things that we value, and it just helps. It's like a launching pad into where we're going in the future. So that is important for young men to make sure, as you stated, to recognize that the small decisions and the small things do matter. That was real good.
100%. Yeah.
But
Um,
what are some of the biggest? I'm sorry, wait, did you have something else to add?
oh, what was it? I didn't really initially, but like one was just like it was buzzing around the back of my head. I didn't know if I'd be able to bring it up later, so I will hop on it now. Now you gave me the chance. Another big one that like really does just simmer along my mind a lot is reading and the intake that you input in your mind. I think that's a massive one that's hugely understated. Um, because especially for me, I will be self-proclaimed on it. I love music, man. Love, huge fan of music. Like, was it growing up? You could always find me with some headphones on. I know that my parents could attest to that. Was it so much that, and not even just my parents, I imagine, even some Sunday school teachers could probably attest that RJ probably had technology or some music or some headphones in times he probably shouldn't have, right? But with that being the case, still loving and appreciating and loving music and the media and movies and everything like that, and still understanding the fact that those things are great and they do have a great place for entertainment and for even still learning life lessons. And I feel like I've grown a lot from a lot of the different forms of media I've intaken as well. But building blocks, but intentional and was it truly like almost like water or fertilizer kind of content whenever you want to pour into yourself also can hugely impact how your life goes about. Was one of the things that I had recently put into practice once again in a habit, which was another thing, shout out parents. My dad always used to push me. I was listening to audiobooks. If I wasn't going to sit down and read a constructive book, at least you can listen to one. And so in taking out time to not listen to more music and swap that out for listen to an audiobook or a podcast or just something constructive, right? Was it has radically was it shifted one of the other major things that we'll probably get here on to later, which is self-talk. And
Mhm.
what you're constantly repeating on your mind, because whenever you listen to music and listen to movies and listen to TV shows, you love them. Like, was it there's a reason why Disney and Star Wars and was it Drake and all these other different people, there's a reason why they're massive properties. They're huge. It's because was it they're catching, we all can relate to them, we love to identify closely with them. But if you can replace at least a little bit of that with some things that are going to feed back into you,
Mhm.
it'd be amazing. But we'll move on now. I don't want to was ramble on too much about that one, but that was a great point I couldn't let just slide by.
And I'm glad that you didn't, because reading is fundamental, and reading is just one of those core things that brings you those things that can't be replaced. And as you said, listen to audiobooks. That's great. That's the next best thing. But you spoke on technology. Yes, we're plugged into our devices. We're plugged into we're online a lot, and I even found when I listen to audiobooks, sometimes I drift because I'm always plugged in, and so sometimes I need to unplug. And so the true essence of sitting down and having some quiet time and curling up a book is so once it gets in your veins, it's like mwah, like nothing beats this time. And so
Truly, it's one of one.
reading is fundamental. So that was a good reminder for our young men to don't discount the importance of reading, and go ahead and take 15, 20 minutes a day to fall in love with it, because it happens over practice. But if you never do it, you think it's like, duh.
Yeah,
Right? Right.
exactly that. Yeah, reading
So
is
what are some of the biggest pressures young men face today that that parents, especially mothers, may not always recognize or understand?
so. One of the, I guess, accumulating pressures that I feel like young men might be facing today is a sense of like identity. Was it one of the things that I feel like has been was I find myself talking to my dad a good bit fairly often about it, is the sense of what truly creates a man in today's society. Right? I feel like it's a question old as time. Back as whenever I remember doing like my first ever like little breakout sessions for whenever I was in like junior high or high school, all the way up to college and community college. Was we've always had these questions in the sense of what young men should be looking to strive to become, what bases should be our values and our foundations. But one of the things that I feel like can be very difficult to understand, especially in this climate today, is the fact that what has become our traditional sense of manhood has been sabotaged relentlessly. And not only the traditional view of manhood, but the traditional home had been attacked for years upon years already. And so not only has the nuclear home been relentlessly was it ripped and torn apart into the sense that we had seen it today, but also the now even the traditional sense of who we are personally within those homes has begun to be attacked as well. And I feel like, at least specifically pointing to young men, because I can that's the part I can speak for most with most experience, right? Was young men now are faced with, I feel like, some of the most was it we have the largest abundance of was it potential beautiful information and things that can create and garner one of the best generations that could come forth ahead of us, but we also have some of the most intense and strong and determined like was it forces of confusion. That's what I'll say. Forces of confusion to muddle the waters and to was it and to mislead and to lose the focus of what young men could really look to what they should become today. Because what young men can look to see and really garner nowadays can be was as extreme as what you might call like a I don't want to use too many like super like online terms, but if you ever heard the term like red pill, where it's like super conservative, like super like traditional man esque, right? Was it like that? You could have that whole ideal, but then on the other end of things, in our modern society, you almost never have anybody preaching the middle ground. You even almost never have any talking about just like, yeah, you can be a good guy who just happens to respect women and also happens to be a dude who's chivalrous and holds open doors and does this all without her. But you're not like, but you're not like, a beta male or whatever. You're just a good, solid dude because that's respectable. Like
Yes.
women and it is a timeless principle because I work at a retirement home and spend time with women from, was it up to 80, down to 20, down to 40, down to 60 or whatever. And however continue to present myself, I have always been found to be respectable. And was in delivering that middle ground approach has been completely lost in the wave. It's either, hey, was it your man? Hey man, so what you have to go and do is you have to go and be a man this way, be a man that way, be a man this way, treat women like this, or you have to be, just completely shy away from what exactly is the whole general ideal of what should be a traditional man, like was it this the entire society of what men are pushing you is wrong, guys, like you don't trust anything that they have to go and say, but it's like there's so much more to be discerned from that. And so I feel like what can be difficult for mothers to truly understand what it might look like for a young man now today is that not only do we have all these voices from the internet, like hey, we were talking about before, but what a lot of these young men will often struggle to find as well is like true one-to-one connections with other men to guide them through this time. Um, was it because it can be very difficult to be able to have these open and vulnerable conversations as a young man, to be able to know and say like, hey, was it my identity and my self-value in this modern world is how I can portray myself as a man, how I can hold down things and take care of things. But to be open and vulnerable enough to say I don't know how to do that very well is it's a conversation I imagine not many young men out there are super excited to go and have. And so just the understanding of what exactly that path looks like is, I would say, the most difficult thing for a young man out there today that they're probably experiencing, at least in my opinion.
Okay, RJ, you're dropping some great nuggets, and you're wiser beyond your years. Let me tell you, some of the things you are dropping, especially in responding to the second question, is so spot on. First, to just talk about the identity. There's so many narratives out there about what a real man is or how a real man should be. And I just feel that for our viewers who are watching, any of those of you who are believers, we just are like under spiritual attack, especially in young men, as well as women as well. What makes a good woman? What makes, it's just
It's
so
preserved.
much. that's circulating out there on our social media platforms, and and because everyone has a voice now, right? And so everyone can give their input. I mean, people who are still growing and developing and they haven't even figured out themselves yet are sitting there telling others what they think is right, or
Yep.
arguing back and forth about this and that, and or who may not even be into the word, or things of that nature. But everybody has an opinion and a platform and a voice, and as long as they have someone supporting whatever they're sharing, they feel they're right. And so I can see why how mothers could miss the point that having that sense of identity for a young man is very challenging in this day and time, and that's something that they can struggle with. You also shared on one-on-one connections with other men, with other males in your age, your peers,
Yep.
those relationships, those connections. And I've heard this from an older gentleman as well, someone who was, 50, 60 years old. They sometimes envy women because by that time we figured it out. We know how to click. That's my girlfriend, that's my girl.
Yeah.
Even if it's time to build new relationships later in life, we know how to do that.
Yeah.
And it seems to be a disconnect even for older gentlemen. So it is important that you are speaking to that and highlighting that for our young men today. They need to hear it so they can be mindful of it and know that it takes intentionality, and it's okay to build healthy relationships. It's either it's toxic or you're corny kind of thing, mentality. It's
Yeah.
just weird how our society and our culture is wired right now.
Yeah. No, 100%. You couldn't have said it better with the verbiage of saying it's either toxic or it's corny.
Yep.
Um, it seems like you can't get no middle of the road. You either are the most like, what was it somehow the ideal version of a man is the most intense and extreme version of all the different toxic male traits that we had seen throughout the years. And
Hmm.
then on the other end of it, it's like, oh, or you have to be like Carlton. Like, what?
Have a Facebook account, send it to them via Messenger, send it to them on their text, or the YouTube link as well if you're tuning in on YouTube. Make sure you share, and we love to see your feedback and participation in the chat. And so to move this on along, RJ, how important has accountability, mentorship, and having strong men around you been in helping you mature and making better decisions?
Oh man, there was it having a good male, not even just role model, but good male influences around you. I feel like is like the make or break point in a young man's journey now today. I feel like I was absolutely blessed, not only in the father department, to say my dad, he's a great, amazing father for me. He's been a great mentor for me, and our relationship has continued to grow and blossom. But also, something that I've recognized over like the past, like probably couple years or so, especially in in the time that our paths had separated, is in that my time in community college, one of the first relationships that I had met, like, first relationships and connections that I made there on that campus, and a time whenever it was post COVID, and this was like, everybody was it was interesting socially, was whenever it comes to, making new friends and meeting new people. But me and this other young man, was a young black man, went over to PV. Shout out my friend Javon, was doing very well, doing nursing down in Houston. But whenever I met the young man, he was wearing a nice brown suit. Went to go and recruit him to the program that I was working at, and was going on from there. It seemed like intentionality was the baseline of our friendship going on from there in the future. Every day, whenever I was in that time, my era of my life, I took physical fitness very seriously, and so was I go super hard in the gym, and was I took honestly a lot of military inspiration from like was it like Marine and SEAL workouts, and whenever I was working out with this young man Javon, he had he used to play football, and football workouts, for those of you who've been out there, know football workouts to be real intense. And like honestly, those football and wrestling workouts are like probably some of the only other workouts that I've seen like compete for some of the craziness that the military workouts will have you doing sometimes. but I'd be sitting there going crazy, going hard, and everything like that, and he'd be right there matching with me. Like, he'd see me stack on a lot of weight, and be like, "Man, you about to do that for reps?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm about to do it for reps." "How many you about to do?" "I'm about to do 10." He's like, "I was gonna do 6, but now I'm gonna do 12." I was like, "Okay, all right, man. It's like, iron sharpens iron, man. Let's go and get harder." So was we and it, like it was truly that intentional whenever it comes into the sense of just us working out in the gym, to how we were taking our classes, to how we were taking our spiritual life, to how we were taking our bodies. Like, was it and throughout that time, and whenever I was not only had him as a close peer, it was the basis of our program, it was the basis of our community at the time, was young Black and brown students doing better and trying to get the most of their time in community college. And so, that being the case, everybody in our general friend group, we were all young men just trying to get better. And so was it literally by the time I ended up leaving to go and graduate the program, I had started a Bible study, was where me and these guys, we were literally working out together, eating together, studying together, worshiping together, and going and planning trips together, having fun together, and looking out to where the fruits that have come to be produced from our time after that. Everybody I've seen from that time in my life has gone on to go and do fairly well for themselves. We're all going on to continue to strive and continue to be not only do well for ourselves, but also continue to shine as a beacon for other people, and was our other peers. They can tell. They can definitely tell whenever something is just a little bit different about that person. I'm just like, man, bro, like, that's because, like, I know my dog. I know they put in the work. We had the foundation set from whenever we were all spending time around each other. Just truly, iron sharpens iron. And so I know that it can be difficult to find peers like that in that sense, but it's also very beneficial into where I say, I preach out to those to those mentors and those those wise older men in the church, and to say that having mentors as older men is also hugely integral. Because kind of going back to what I was talking about before with the criticism from our parents, sometimes the criticism that we get, and we may react like the same way we did with our parents, we get later on in life. Because this program and this environment and meeting these friends and peers was catered and fostered from a mentor that I met at that job. Was it with him wanting the intention, that whole program being us wanting to see young Black and brown students do well in college. And so he set the baseline for all of us to want to go in and make sure that we're building upon each other, building upon what we want from each other, building upon what we want for ourselves. And so was having all these things and having all these different factors built upon us socially and built upon us spiritually and mentally. It's truly it's worth its weight in gold, really. Like, knowing and understanding how important it is to have good people around you, and that just want to also strive for better.
Well, the mentor at this program at the community college, they're spot on. They found the sweet spot with supporting young men, making sure that they are connected with other young men who have similar interests in life, as far as starting off on the right foot and doing well and just staying grounded with their core values. And without even probably knowing, you and your friend Javon and you and your other peers that were at this school were holding one another accountable, as far as your health and good grades and spirituality. It may not have come off as a conversation like that, but linking arm in arm and making sure that you stay connected and supported one another in that journey. Hey, let's go to Bible study. Hey, let's go to church, whatever that meant. Hey, let's go hit some reps. That's holding one another accountable, and just taking those action steps together. So that is just a blessing that gave you a great foundation launching into young adulthood. I think that's perfect.
Most definitely. What was it? It takes a village at all times.
Absolutely. So for a mother raising a son, speak to us moms,
Yeah.
what is something you believe that she should be do more of? Let me repeat that. For a mother raising a son, what is something you believe she should do more of, and something she may need to allow her son to learn or figure out for himself? We'll hold your hand. We don't want to let you go. We'll do everything for you if we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
was it this is actually pretty funny. I just recently actually had a conversation with my mom about this before. Because one of the things that I talked about, I think I brought it up a bit previously before, is that one of the things that is super valuable, not only for young men, but I feel like, but for just people in general, is to be pushed. You have to be, you have to get uncomfortable at some point in time. And so was one of the things that I feel like it may be difficult to kind of, I guess, translate exactly in the best ways at time. But for a mother raising her son, I believe that one of the things that that they should strive to do for is I guess trying to articulate and structure and I guess give more reason and depth to understanding the struggle and encouraging the struggle. Was it? I guess not even encouraging the struggle, but encouraging was it encouraging the extra effort and was an understanding that being uncomfortable will lead to further growth. Like because to me, one of the things that was it for me I've learned as of late is that I'm a huge sports analogy guy. Was it maybe it's just playing sports my whole life? You know, was it? It's been the thing that makes things most tangible to me. And that being the case, one of the things that I feel like makes the most one-to-one sense in the analogy is that as we want to continue to strengthen ourselves, it's the same way that we want to continue to strengthen ourselves in the gym or in any kind of sport. Was it whenever I first started playing basketball, I could barely dribble like with my right hand, let alone like, you know, do a crossover or anything like that. Like literally, I remember for almost my entire time playing basketball through high school, I could not shoot a well-formed, proper jump shot. I did not learn how to shoot a jump shot until I went over to college. Like, what was it? And I'm talking about, I spent hours practicing this thing throughout my time in high school and junior high. Like, was I went to shooting coaches and everything like that, but still, you know, still never really put together a piece and everything like that. But that's all to say, right? Was it that putting in time and putting in effort and putting in was it and wanting to see results pay off their dividends? Because you know, was it later on after I not learned how to shoot well, throughout all my time in high school. Later on, whenever I went to go and play runs with was it friends through community college, people knew me specifically for shooting, and they're like, "Man, hey, that guy can shoot. We need to shoot. Let's get him." I'm like, "All right, cool." Put in my time and put in my effort to see was it understand that putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation and learn was it whether it be learning a new skill, whether it be was it put on it in learning a new hobby in the sense that we were talking about for reading, and whether it be learning a was it was or learning and putting yourself into a new habit or regimen and waking yourself up earlier, understanding and knowing that was it and trying to lean in and was it and truly push and understand push in understanding for was it the sons out there what there was how important and integral the purpose is for this. Kind of looping back around to I guess the original point what I was talking about before on number one, in that was it knowing that the small things matter. Was it knowing that whenever was it that I know that you may not feel like you want to go to this swing practice, or you may not want to go and try out this instrument, or you may not want to go and try to go was even to just go to this event. But I remember my mom, she said this is a great example I feel like for one of them, right? What was it? Whenever I was in high school, looking back at high school was one of my favorite. It was a fun time going back through high school. Made a lot of good friends and everything like that. But throughout that time, I remember I think my freshman year, socially, I was like kind of struggling at the time because I was just acclimating, young kid coming to high school.
Yeah.
Freshman coming into high school, and I told my mom about a ski trip coming up, and I was a little bit nervous about it, but I was just like, man, I personally had no interest in actually skiing. I was like, I never skateboarded before. I tried to rip stick once, and then immediately fell and hit my butt, and said I'm never getting on another thing with wheels again. I'm good off of all that. But then I ended up telling her about the trip, and was it, a couple weeks later go on past, was it, and then they're doing like announcements and everything for the trip. They call my name all the way down at the bottom. I'm like, why'd you call my name? She's like, oh yeah, no, I put a down deposit because you're going to the trip. I was just like, no, why would, I was like, bro, I don't like the cold. I don't like, was it there? There's nothing there. Like, I'm good on that. None of my friends are going. I was like, bro, I came here with like only 2 or 3 other people here from my old school. There's no way I'm going. None of my friends are going. She's like, no, you're going to go. I was just like, oh, okay. All right, sure. And so was it long story short, right? I am going on to go on this skiing trip. I decided to end up going snowboarding. Fell in love with it. Now it is one of my favorite things to go and do. Although, definitely is a bit of a pricey hobby, right? It was one of my favorite experiences, something I treasure till this day. And then was one other like little small tidbit of a story to I feel like kind of put a little bit of icing on the cake to understand it really will be some of the experiences that you truly do think that as trying to preach to the sons, I guess, here, if you're ever listening, if you're listening, if the mom wants to go in and try and give you evidence to say, hey, a young 20 something is saying listen to your mom, here's the clip to show them, hey, yo, trust me, because hear me on this. Literally, my so one of my favorite experiences that I still quote about till this day was my trip that I went to Peru. Was I got to go and see Machu Picchu, beautiful place, life-changing trip. Like Lily still talk to it this day. People are amazed, amazing time. But the reason why I ended up going to that trip, funnily enough, was because of the beef I had with my English teacher. And the reason why is because, fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here doing all this conversational stuff. I was terrible in my communications class in high school. I was horrible at it. It's because, and reason for me is going back to it. You know, I was a young man who had definitely a bit of too much ego at the time, and I just definitely didn't take the classes seriously into the structure that it had at the time. But with that being the case, me and the teacher butt heads. It was bad, and so me and him did not see eye to eye at all, but he was the one coordinating and running the entire ski trip. I mean, the entire mission trip to Peru. And so she ended up sending me off to that mission trip to Peru, and I did not want to go and spend time with that guy. I didn't want to see eye to eye with him at all or anything like that. But by the end of the trip, he ended up having me being one of the most influential people in our construction crew. I ended up having one of the most life-changing experiences of my life, going and being out in another country and building a church from literally nothing, base foundation nothing, up to a concrete building with a entire roof and having a service in the building, like a life-changing experience. And for all that to come from a moment in where I was sitting there looking at my mom so frustrated, like, are you serious? Like, are you really sending me this? Like, bro, like him. So it's all to say, right? Was I can get and I can understand the frustration, but really, really wanting to push and understand and try and garner and foster the idea of that these moments of uncomfortability, that these moments of unsurety are truly investments for your future. It'd be super, super important things to lead on to them.
That is great. You took us down memory lane because, as I stated earlier, I've known you and your family for quite some time. I think I came to the same church that you guys were at in 2010. So I remember the pictures. I remember the pictures of you going skiing. I absolutely remember the trip to Peru because it was a little snag and getting back home. Right?
Yeah.
I remember all that. But for what you shared for moms to remember is it's okay to let them figure out some things. And as you stated, your mom kind of encouraged it in her witty maternal way, right?
Yeah.
You were new to the school. You only had a few friends coming from the previous school, going into high school, kind of struggling, trying to get socially acclimated. Okay, she found out about the ski trip. Boom. Because she knew, for one, that was going to be a life-changing trip. You're going to remember it forever. And sometimes it's carpe diem. You got to seize the moment. You got to go get it when you can go, send him on the trip. He may not ever, have this opportunity again because you really just don't know, right?
True.
And to encourage you to go on the trip to Peru with the teacher that you like the least.
Yeah.
And saying, you know what, the trip in itself was bigger than that element part of it, but it was going to definitely help heal that as well. And so moms, for those moms who, as I started out, will try to protect our sons from any uncomfortable situations. And what I see even in today's society and our culture currently, if our sons don't want to do it, they ain't got to do it. We're not, we don't create no avenue or trying to give them a different perspective on it. Nothing. Oh, you don't want to do it? Okay, you don't have to do it. Well, he said he don't want to go. I'm not gonna make my son do something he don't want to do. Yeah. But you kind of helping them stay stuck when it's like that, because they're still going to evolve and grow to be the men that God has called them to be. But the experience is just going to help them elevate and mature faster. So That was great feedback that you gave on that one. And so I was going down memory lane. I'm like, yeah, I remember that picture. Yeah, I remember that. I was
Yeah.
right there with you.
Was it, man? Was it feels like yesterday, man? Looking at as remembering some of those memories.
Yeah, sweet, sweet, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, we're before we wrap up, I have one more question.
Okay.
RJ, if you could sit down with a room full of teenage and young adult men today, what 5 things would you tell them they must learn if they want to become responsible, successful, God honoring men?
5 things. So, 5 things. I feel like partially I'm gonna cheat and take a bit of inspiration here from my dad because his 5 are pretty great. Was it the first one I'd say is probably is that you need to was it make sure to take care of your was it of your peace of mind mentally and spiritually. I think that those 2 things are probably some of the most integral things to build up as a baseline, and almost everything else can then fall in turn to be pretty well managed after that. Was if you're making sure that was that you're trying your best to continue to feed your mind the most healthy and most productive things to continue to feed and build up the most healthy and productive version of yourself internally, then everything else will usually tend to try and follow suit. And so, what would be the first one? Is to work on your spiritual and your mental effort and spiritual mental health. Was the next one would be is to understand that was that there are kind of 2 schools of thought in was in how you structure and how you would like to go about your life. Was you can either have unorganized chaos. Oh well, let me let me think about the reframe the verbiage for that. You can either have was it chaotic freedom, or you can have let me see if another word for to say for or you can either have discipline, or is it, or you can either have disciplined progress, I guess. And so whenever I say by that in the 2 schools of thought, by having chaotic freedom or disciplined progress, whenever I kind of go on and talk about these different experiences, the ski trips, the mission trip and everything like that, the thing that kind of garnered the most out of those experiences was the structure and was the time in where I was in a different environment to truly push myself within this one particular lane. And it's a similar experience as to why I feel like I've gotten so much time out of my experience throughout the military training. It's times in where your life is within a singular tunnel, and although the freedoms may not seem as luxurious as just being able to go and decide when you want to wake up, when you want to do this, when you want to do that, was understanding it and knowing where your commitments lie to at that point in time, and knowing when you have to make those sacrifices will pay off their dividends infinitely off into the future. Because whenever you understand that a structured discipline and a day by day step by step plan is exactly how kingdoms are made, exactly how cities are built, then you'll understand the fact that although there's a ton of fun and that there's a ton of virality, there's a ton of glitz and glamour to come from the freedom and chaos, from the freedom that comes from the chaos that comes from freedom, I guess that's a much better way to order the words. You'll then see the fact that although there is a lot to be gained from the short gratification from it, if you want to see true long-term progress, if you want to see, for me, I'm a big person on legacy. If you want to see legacy, if you want to see things that live on beyond your time, if you want to see things that live on beyond your own memory, was that you have to be able to be willing to make those sacrifices. So was understanding. So we're at 2 points now. That was a pretty loaded second point. Was it the first point here was understanding to take care of your spiritual and mental health. Your second point here was to understand that you can live your life by 2 schools of thought. Was it a chaotic freedom or a structured progress? And so then the next one is going to be understanding that you are who you surround yourself with. And so was it, whether it be like for me, I spend a lot of time around my grandparents. And so I feel like that also probably leads to a bit of my, my agedness beyond my years. My uncle tells me all the time, just, man, you spend too much time with old folk. And I was just like, yeah, probably. I was just like, a little bit. I was like, my weekends, I spend time at like a senior home for for my job and everything like that. And, although, I definitely do spend a good bit of time with people who are more matured, I have zero regrets about it, in all honesty, because one of the things that I also have learned to lean into, which I think is a great principle, which you can kind of maybe point 3.5, toss in there as a bonus point, is understanding that you almost always have something to learn. Actually, cut out the almost. You always have something to learn. So was it knowing that, and knowing and being around people who have lived and experienced more life than you, it makes it so much easier and so much more to gain and garner from that. But we move on to that third point, right? So understanding that it is very important to have a good structure and a good group of people around you is essential. So whether it be, I know you may not be able to decide from your workspace, if you're working at McDonald's, hustling your hours. I know you can't choose how you're spending your time around your coworkers there, but do your best to try and find a Wednesday night service, maybe. Do your best to try and find a run club. Do your best to try and check out a Toastmasters. Even if you're not a great public speaker, literally public speaking will always be a great skill to have in your back pocket. It's not just because I'm a good talker, I'll enjoy talking, but I'm telling you, it's a great skill to have. Like, was it being able to know that, like, whenever you're going up on the corporate ladder and you're going and doing your thing, and that your boss can look over to the right and just hand you this mic and say, hey man, you give this speech in front of these stockholders, and you can shrug it off and figure it out. And and that was just from some time that you spent to go and invest within yourself, to go and spend some time around some people who also were all trying to build and garner and, was it add to their lives. It truly does do so much more for you than you'll understand. Than you may understand the short term. So I'm going on to the last fourth point. Almost done. The fourth point here that I'd give is knowing and understanding that your life is also just a reflection of your choices. Where you are in life is just a reflection of whatever you've done yesterday, the day before, week before, and month before, and what you're planning to do tomorrow, and what you're planning to do for the next hour. And so although these small day by day intentional choices may not seem like they're a huge idea, was a huge deal. You sitting there and deciding to pop up an Instagram for the 18th time today may not seem like a big deal, but those 5-10 minutes could quite easily, very, very drastically shift the trajectory of your day, all depending on how you use them. And so just keep it quick, going on to this last and fifth one, was the fifth point that I would say that I would give off to room full of young men. This one is one that's coming out home to me almost, really, is to not lose your focus. Not lose your focus into, to really take in time for you. And whenever I say on that one to not lose your focus, I guess if if a young man is to hear this now, it would be to also allude to, man, not lose your focus on what your priorities are, man. I know that a partner may seem like your future ideal of what you're looking for, because, man, trust me, I feel like young men out there, especially nowadays, everybody's always thinking about how can I find my woman, this, that, whatever. But man, like, it literally I feel like it's so cliche, but it truly everything else does come and fall into place whenever you look internally. Like, I'm truly finding in this time and era of my life that especially looking through my long tenure time in previous relationships, is that a lot of the things that I could have seen better and could have seen solutions come out of are results of things that, had I spent more time internally and had I spent more time, building up, building up myself, these things could have been avoided entirely. Whether it be like my financial structure and being able to not only make sure that I can be a comfortable man within our relationship, but also be comfortable truly within myself and not try and push myself beyond my means for that. And or whether it be, standing 10 toes on what our boundaries are as a relationship, and standing 10 toes on what our boundaries are, whenever how we spend our days and our weeks together. Was it before dating, in dating, and then after dating? Was it on whatever that looks like into y'all's future? Was it into understanding, and was it truly understanding and realizing what you want from a partner as a young man in a relationship? Because I'm telling you right now, Was it from the perspective of a young man who's just recently also gotten out of a somewhat long relationship, is that as I've spent more time by myself and as I've spent more time unlocking and understanding and seeing what RJ's 35-year-old goal is looking like, brother, we have so much more that we want. How do you know how do you know what was it, what you want for her yet? Like, was it like, I mean, how do you know how was it, where she fits in your life? Whenever whenever, like, in all reality, in all trueness, like, was it your big game legacy doesn't even have a slot for someone else yet? Like, was it really barely even has a slot for you yet? Like, a lot of the time, like, it's not to talk down on whoever's out there, but it's to say I feel like a lot of us are truly, a lot of us are most likely not in the position where we want to be yet in life, right? And so, or at least continue to strive to where we truly want to get to. So understand and be intentional to take that time and for the sacrifice that you need to take, and understand that being single is not a punishment. It is a time for due diligence, and it's a time for self-investment. Because, man, once you continue to invest that stock into yourself, was it later on? Was it whenever you do find that person? Was it like the way that stocks work, guys? They multiply in dividends. So now was it like whenever you put in that
Okay,
penny,
come on.
you put in that penny stock. Was it like whenever you were first in the dating game, you were like $1.50. Now was
my
it?
talk now, but
Man,
you
now you're
sit
better.
fire.
Now you're better. Like, y'all just went public. Like, it's time. But you get it right. So yeah, was it definitely just take time for yourself for the investment. So let's see if I can pull in these 5 points for y'all to go back through here real quick.
Yeah, I got it.
All right,
Okay,
sounds good. So the first one is, I would say, just be mindful for those out y'all to take care of your mental and your spiritual health. The second one would be to be mindful and also to understand that life comes into two different schools of thought. You either have your chaotic freedom or you have your structured progress. Then your third point would then come on to be understanding that that your people and that your mentors and the people that you surround yourself with are going to dictate and decide where your future goes on to be. Then your next one goes on to I think the fourth one here was let's see. The fourth one was oh man, just slipped my mind. It was oh dude. It was understanding that you need to. Oh man, never mind. Just slipped my mind. It was you need to make sacrifices, and I know the last one is you need to make sacrifices for yourself. And you need to that you need to take time to look inwardly, and that you need to take time to understand that you come first, in the sense that you can make sacrifices to put yourself first. But I forgot the fourth point. Oh man!
Before you shared that young men need to understand that life is a reflection of their choices, the past choices and the choices they're going to make in the near future. But you did really good calling all that back, because you shared so many good points about each of those five, and it was just so good, because number five is where the majority of us, we just slip off the slope, because we're not taught to be mindful, to keep our eye on the prize. I remember speaking with my son about that. You forgot, he was involved in the program, and you forgot what you was there for. I had to explain that to them. Stay focused on what you are there for. I'm not saying that you can't enjoy all elements or certain other elements of it, but don't lose sight of the goal or the priority, the purpose, all the things. So, and we do that as young adults, and we do that as older adults too, when it's time to know how to juggle and manage relationships. You fall in love, and you think you're in love, or what love is, for whatever age that you are, and for young men and young women alike. But I know we're talking to young men. We lose sight of what the goal is, of the point, the focus. You go off to college and you lose your mind over a girl. It's just you start working at a job, and then you get involved in a relationship with someone on the job, and most times than fewer, that's going to derail. And I've seen men get let go from a job because of how they mismanaged a relationship that started there. So that was very, very important. All five of your points were great. But that last one, I was like, man, that's a whole nother segment.
That's a talk in and of itself.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. Well, RJ, it has been my pleasure for this to be our first time sharing this space on this podcast. Um, I have thoroughly and truly enjoyed it. And I know any young man who goes back and watch this on demand is going to pull some very important things, and it's going to stick out in his head. It's going to be a good thorn. It's going to be a nudge in his spirit that he needs to be more mindful of this, pay attention to that. Relationships matter. Building community with peers, individuals their age, all of that is important. Get around people who have, good lifestyle habits and positive, and there's nothing corny about that. You're going to win every time. So thank you for all that you shared this evening. I really enjoyed it.
thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. Love every time coming on here, and for our first time sharing the stage here, it was amazing, electric. You were an amazing host. The flow was natural. I loved it was a great conversation, and once again, it was an amazing pleasure to speak out there to any young men out there. And I do just want to give some words of encouragement out to y'all to continue to stay the path. It doesn't always seem easy, but it is 100% worth it. Was it and taking out time to make these investments now? They will 100% pay out their dividends. Was it one last little thing to leave out that I've been putting into the hearts of all of my peers who I hold close to my heart, and so I want to put this out into all those young adults out there, not just young men, is that, we all are in our young 20s, all living to get the most out of our 20s. I know it. I know that's our feeling. Was it because we all feel like our 20s are somehow slipping through our fingers, which, hey, post-COVID, I get it. Was it? But understand that the game does not end here. Was it what my whole mantra over these last few months has been is like, don't get me wrong, I want to have great 20s, but I want to have amazing 30s. I want to have like generational 40s, like, you know what I'm saying? So was understand and appreciate the fact that for all the criticisms that we may have, for all the ambitions that we may have for our time throughout our 20s, that this is not the end of the race, that this is not just the race, that this is a marathon in all reality. Was we got to go for the long term sprint. So stick to it and continue to work on it, y'all. Thank you again for having me. It's been a great evening.
Absolutely. Those are great words of advice to all of our young men. And even if you're a teenager on your way to college or on your way out of college, this is really great. Make sure you pin this video, save it, and go back and watch it. And those for our viewers, make sure you share, share, share. We appreciate each of you who have tuned in and were with us this evening. Please make sure you tune back in on Thursday for our next podcast here on Build Your Best Life at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time and 5:30 Central Time. We love and appreciate you. Thank you again for joining us. And RJ, God bless. It's been great.